Welcome back to AI Unraveled. Today we are tearing up the org chart. For a century, the corporation was a pyramid. But what happens when your most productive employee isn't a person, but a piece of software that works 24/7, never sleeps, and costs a fraction of a salary? We are entering the era of the agentic organization. In this episode, we are exploring the work graph, a new way of mapping value where humans don't just manage people, they orchestrate armies of autonomous agents. We will compare the two heavyweights of this new world, Anthropic's Cowork, which lives on your desktop, and Manus, which lives on the web. But it's not all efficiency and speed. We're also talking about the silent AI insurance crisis, why your directors and officers' policy might be worthless if an AI makes a mistake, and how to conduct a performance review for an algorithm. But first, are you drowning in dense legal text? Jamgamind is the new audio intelligence platform that turns 100-page mandates into 5-minute executive briefings. Start your specialized audio briefing today at jamgamind.com. Now, let's unravel the future of work.
Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today, we are cracking open a document that is, and I don't think this is an exaggeration, fundamentally redefining the future of work for every single executive listening.
It really is.
The title is striking. Managing the Agentic Hybrid Workforce. And honestly, the central premise is, well, it's terrifyingly simple. It's that the fundamental unit of labor in your company has already changed.
Right.
And if you're still managing by a 20th century standard, by a hierarchy of reporting lines, you're already operating with a really dangerous handicap.
That's absolutely right. I mean, we are deep in what the sources are calling the agentic era, which they're pinpointing right now, 2025, 2026. This is not just about automation anymore.
Yeah.
It's not about machines doing those repetitive, deterministic tasks. This is about true autonomy. We were talking about systems capable of reasoning, of complex planning, tool use.
And executing multi-step workflows without needing a human to constantly click next.
Exactly. The mission for every organization right now is, I think, simple to state, but incredibly difficult to execute. You have to achieve autonomy with strategic control.
The moment those agents gain the ability to reason and plan, they just stop being mere tools. They effectively become digital workers.
They do.
And this document isn't theory. What we've done is distill the tactical blueprint for the structural, the technological, and I think most critically, the legal preparedness you need right now.
Our goal in this deep dive is to really give you that actionable playbook, because when we look at the immediate structural shift that this document mandates, the conclusion is, well, it's unavoidable.
Which is?
The traditional organizational chart, that familiar pyramid of boxes and lines we all know, designed in the age of assembly lines, it is functionally obsolete in the face of agentic speed.
Okay, let's unpack that because that is a monumental claim. For a century, the org chart has been the bedrock of corporate design. Right? It was optimized for stability, clear chains of command, repeatability.
He was command and control.
It was command and control logistics designed for the Industrial Revolution. So why is that pyramid failing the modern agentic corporation so badly right now?
Because it maps authority, but it fundamentally fails to map, value creation. The traditional pyramid is built on these functional silos, marketing, finance, legal operations.
Right.
And in the traditional world, if marketing needed data from finance, a human had to submit a ticket, wait for approval, wait for a human analyst to pull the data, and then route it back up the chain and over to the next silo.
That friction, that latency, was just considered the cost of doing business, the cost of stability.
Exactly. But the agentic organization runs on speed and fluidity. When an autonomous agent needs to pull real-time cash flow data from finance, analyze customer sentiment data managed by marketing, and then push an urgent decision to operations, that whole process has to take seconds, not days.
And the rigid organizational structure, with all its human layers of approval, is now the primary bottleneck. It's what's slowing down your new digital workforce.
You've got it. So those silos that executives have spent decades optimizing for scale and clarity are now effectively just internal speed bumps for the agents.
The sources use this fantastic phrase for it. They call them permeable membranes, traversed by agents that are acting as the high-speed connective tissue, moving data and decisions across boundaries at speeds that just, well, they defy human bureaucracy.
And this demands a whole new architectural map. The static org chart is being replaced by the dynamic work chart, or what's more commonly being called the work graph.
So the org chart showed who reports to whom. What does the work graph show?
The work graph maps the entire end-to-end process of how value is actually created.
Okay, so what specifically needs to be on this new map that just wasn't on the old one?
It's highly technical, but it's also deeply organizational. The work graph explicitly links your desired business outcomes,
Yeah.
let's say a 10% reduction in procurement costs, to the end-to-end flows.
So all the tasks required, the handoffs.
Every single step. And crucially, it must explicitly assign human owners and agent operators at every single one of those steps. We have to stop viewing agents as just software tools hidden away under the IT budget.
They're actual team members.
They're digital coworkers holding specific positions within that workflow. And this means they demand dedicated onboarding, which is basically high-level prompt engineering and giving them tool access and performance management and ongoing governance, just like any human employee.
So your HR processes now need to account for non-human labor.
They absolutely have to.
That reframing of labor from human headcount to agent instantiation, that changes everything about the economics, doesn't it?
It really does.
Let's talk about the massive leverage ratio that is driving this shift,
Right.
because this is where the C-suite needs to pay very, very close attention, especially during their annual budgeting process.
The numbers are truly staggering. The research shows the organizational leverage driving what's being called the agentic organization. A relatively small human team, often just 2 to 5 people, can effectively supervise an entire agent factory.
An agent factory.
Yeah, a factory composed of maybe 50 to 100 specialized software entities, all running end-to-end processes.
So 50 digital coworkers managed by a handful of human orchestrators.
That is a 20x to 50x magnification of cognitive labor. Just think about what that does to scaling a business.
Well, the traditional model of scaling, hiring more people, going through recruitment, onboarding, training, all that associated overhead, is fundamentally broken then.
Exactly. The sources call this the frontier firm model of 2026. Scaling happens by instantiating more agents, giving them more compute, defining their roles in the work graph, not by navigating the really complex overhead of hiring more humans.
This sounds great from a pure productivity perspective, but what does this shift do to internal corporate politics? I mean, the traditional executive budget meeting is fought over headcount.
It is.
Now you're telling them that budget authority shifts from HR over to the CIO, prioritizing compute and token budgets over salary lines.
That is the political friction of the next 18 months right there. Headcount historically signaled power and strategic priority. Now, access to compute and the ability to engineer these high-leverage agentic workflows, that's the new signifier of power.
It forces a really difficult conversation.
It does. Are you measuring your department's success by the size of your human team or by the efficiency of your agent factory?
And we are seeing the economic reality of this shift already playing out in some specific sector predictions, which I think drives home the point that the job isn't going away, it's just migrating.
A perfect example is financial services. By 2026, the prediction is that manual transaction processing roles will decline by about 25%. That's the classic displacement story we always hear.
Right, the scary part.
But the strategic growth is where the new jobs are. Roles that require human oversight, what they're calling AI-assisted processing, are projected to grow by 40%.
40%.
And even more dramatically, roles focused on governance, testing, and upkeep, AI training and quality assurance, those are set to surge by a predicted 65%.
So the human role becomes less about the execution and much more about defining and policing the execution parameters for this new digital workforce.
You've got it. The human is the strategist, the governor.
That brings us back to the structure of the agentic workforce itself. This isn't just one big blob of AI doing everything. The organization really needs to define the relationship between the human and the agent, and that depends on the complexity and the risk of the task.
Right. We have moved from simple augmentation, where the agent just helps the human, to true orchestration, where the human manages a crew of agents.
Okay, so let's define the 3 structural archetypes for collaboration that executives need to be thinking about. Let's start with the easiest one, the freelancer model.
The freelancer model is what you'd call stage 1 maturity. It's really focused on individual human productivity augmentation. It's simple.
So one agent, one task.
Exactly. A single agent performs one well-defined end-to-end task under the direct supervision of a human requester. You give it a straightforward prompt like, draft this market analysis on Q3 competitor spending using our internal database.
The agent is like a digital contractor. It takes the brief, runs the whole task, delivers the final output back to the human.
Right. It's fantastic for rapid prototyping and maximizing individual cognitive output.
Okay, so it's basically a very high-functioning, specialized contractor. It's useful for ad hoc tasks, but it's going to hit a wall when the project gets too complex or involve multiple steps that rely on different specializations.
Precisely. When you move into complex project management like running a full software development lifecycle or generating regulatory documents or launching an integrated marketing campaign, that's when you need the orchestrator worker model.
And this is stage 2 maturity.
Yeah.
Here, the human takes on the role of a true manager.
Yes. The human manager defines the high-level project goal. Say, develop, test, and deploy the new customer onboarding flow. Instead of tasking one agent, they deploy a whole crew of specialized agents.
Like a researcher, a writer, a coder.
A quality assurance agent, exactly. And the key distinction from the freelancer model is that these agents execute their subtasks and coordinate amongst themselves. The coder agent coordinates with the writer agent on documentation, and both of them coordinate with the tester agent.
So the human manager only receives the final output, or maybe some strategic intermediate milestones.
Right. This is truly running a machine-to-machine workflow, and the human's job shifts entirely to setting the strategic direction and evaluating the final product. You're not checking every line of code or every single sentence.
That maximizes your flow efficiency, but I imagine it introduces a whole lot more autonomy risk.
It does, which brings us to the third model, and this one is critical for any high-stakes environment, the evaluator optimizer loop.
I find this model fascinating because it seems to be driven entirely by risk mitigation and these high reliability checks. It's like an automated adversarial review.
That's precisely what it is. You have two distinct separate agents. One agent is the creator. It's drafting a highly complex legal document, generating financial risk exposure calculations, or producing mission-critical code.
And the second, entirely separate agent is the critic, or the quality assurance officer.
And that critic agent's only job is to ruthlessly check the creator agent's output against a set of strict, codified criteria. It's looking for factual errors, hallucination spikes, regulatory noncompliance, you name it.
It's an automated peer review, but run through an adversarial lens.
Yes, and if the critic finds an issue, it doesn't just report it to a human, it routes the document back to the creator with the specific constraint that needs fixing, something like, the valuation methodology chosen does not comply with the new SEC guidance.
So it only hits a human's desk once the critic agent has approved the output.
Exactly. This is mandatory for things like compliance checking and high reliability legal drafting, where the cost of a single error is just immense.
So these structural archetypes, the freelancer, the orchestrator, and the evaluator optimizer, these are the building blocks of that work graph.
They are.
The biggest takeaway here seems to be that you have to map your value creation flow and then explicitly decide which archetype is best suited for each stage. If you treat all your agent work as a simple freelancer task, you're just never going to achieve scale.
You'll be stuck in first gear.
That structural shift demands the right tools, of course. For executives who are deciding where to deploy capital, understanding the functional difference between the emerging agent archetypes is absolutely essential because they are highly specialized.
Oh, absolutely. Not all agents wear the same uniform. They are fundamentally specialized based on their domain of operation. You really have two main categories.
Okay.
You have the desktop integrated agent, which is local and focused on your internal file-based environment.
Yeah.
And then you have the cloud autonomous agent, which is designed for the open web and external data. They are specialized colleagues designed for very different jobs.
Let's start with that desktop native companion, Anthropic's Cowork. This isn't just another LLM in a browser window, is it? This sounds like a radical integration into the user's own operating system.
It is. Cowork is embedded right into the local machine environment. It moves the agent out of the browser and puts it onto your desktop. And that eliminates the massive friction of context switching.
You mean having to upload files, copy-paste outputs, constantly defining the agent's working environment?
All of that. It just operates seamlessly within the user's local file structure.
That level of deep local integration sounds, I have to say, fundamentally terrifying. What kind of capability does that unlock, and what is the immediate, non-negotiable security trade-off we have to accept here?
The capability is immense. It allows the agent to become a genuine doer, actually manipulating local resources. A prime example is file system management. If you grant it access to a local folder, Cowork can autonomously read, edit, rename, and move files. You could literally tell it, organize my downloads folder by creating subfolders for different file types and renaming documents based on their content.
They would just do it.
It uses multimodal analysis to understand if that PDF is a receipt, a contract, or a slide deck, and then it organizes accordingly.
That ability to process and act on local, visual, and document data is critical. I'm imagining a sales manager just drowning in receipts.
Right.
The agent could process a folder full of receipt screenshots, analyze the text and figures, and then generate a consolidated, perfectly formatted Excel expense report without ever leaving the local environment.
And that local integration enables a critical workflow advantage: asynchronous task queuing.
What's that?
Traditional AI interfaces are synchronous. You put in a prompt, you wait for the answer. CoWork allows you to queue up multiple distinct, complex, long-running tasks all at the same time.
So I could say, draft the Q3 report using these 5 local files, debug this Python script in my development environment, and summarize these 40 meeting notes from yesterday all at once.
And then you move on to your next task while the agent factory runs in parallel in the background. This parallelism is absolutely essential for achieving the high-volume productivity gains that the agentic era is promising.
But let's circle back to that security concern. I'm still stuck on this. Integrating an autonomous AI directly into the operating system and giving it file modification rights feels like holding a live wire. How is that risk mitigated?
The guardrail is foundational. It's a permission-first sandbox architecture. CoWork cannot touch any file or folder unless you, the human user, have explicitly granted it granular access. That's a necessity for legal defensibility.
And there's a second layer.
Yes, the second layer is a strict human-in-the-loop, or HITL, safety protocol for any potentially destructive operations.
Like mass deletion or overwriting code libraries.
Precisely. If CoWork initiates a plan that involves deleting a large number of files or making substantial changes to executable code or overwriting critical configuration data, it acts as a proposer.
It proposes the action.
It pauses the workflow, sends an explicit notification to your dashboard with the proposed action. I intend to delete 350 files from the downloads folder. Approve or deny. And then it waits for your confirmation.
So it mitigates the classic sorcerer's apprentice risk, the danger that an agent just recursively executes a flawed but autonomous command with catastrophic results.
That's the idea. It puts a human brake on any potentially disastrous action.
And how do executives oversee the cost and the efficiency of this internal digital workforce? We talked about compute being the new currency.
IT administrators absolutely must rely on centralized dashboards. These provide granular spend control so you can allocate budgets to specific agent workflows and detailed usage analytics. The key metric they track is token consumption.
You have to explain this simply for the executive audience. What are tokens?
Tokens are essentially the money the agent spends per thought.
They're literally computational currency.
Right. And if your agents are running inefficiently, if they're thrashing, exploring irrelevant data, or generating overly verbose intermediate steps, your token consumption budget blows up. That leads to serious shadow costs.
So these dashboards ensure that the massive efficiency gains you get from using something like CoWork aren't just eroded by uncontrolled, wasteful API usage.
Exactly. You have to manage the agent's salary.
Okay, that's the internal, desktop-native, file-manipulating specialist. Let's pivot to the second archetype, Manus, the autonomous web operator. If CoWork is focused on cleaning up your hard drive, Manus is focused on conquering external information and execution.
Manus is designed to be the general AI agent for the open web. It executes complex workflows out in the real world by simulating a human user, navigating websites, using forms, clicking buttons, interacting with third-party web tools.
And its architecture is known as multi-model intelligence. Why does it need a hybrid brain? Why can't one model just do it all?
Because efficiency and cost matter a lot. Manus leverages a combination of specialized models like, say, Claude 3.5 for reasoning and Alibaba's Quinn for specific data extraction tasks. It selects the most efficient brain for any given subtask in real time.
So if it needs high-level strategic reasoning, it uses the expensive, powerful model.
Right, but if it just needs to parse a static web page, it uses the faster, cheaper model. This constant optimization is vital for managing those token budgets we just talked about.
This sounds like the true fire and forget model of automation for external research. Give us that mandated example to demonstrate its autonomy.
The standard task they use is this: find the top 5 competitors in the AI governance space, analyze their public pricing pages, and put the resulting comparative data into a shared Google Sheet.
And Manus doesn't just return a list of links.
No, it autonomously manages the entire workflow. It uses search, it clicks the results, it handles dynamic web elements like cookie banners or pop-up forms, and it parses the HTML of the pricing tables.
And what about identity and credential management?
Yes. For deep research that requires logins like accessing premium industry reports or proprietary databases, Manus manages its own authentication using the user's stored credentials in a secure vault.
And its real resilience.
Its real resilience lies in its ability to self-correct. If it hits a broken link, a capped TCHA, or a website layout that's changed since its last visit, which are common failure points for traditional automation scripts, it doesn't just fail, it tries to debug the situation in real time.
It retries with different browsing strategies or tries to bypass obstacles, demonstrating true autonomy.
Exactly.
Given its high degree of autonomy, the transparency aspect becomes absolutely crucial. How does Manus maintain auditability for a supervisor?
They emphasize what they call a glass box approach, which is particularly important for organizations using their team plan with shared credit pools. Supervisors can audit the agent's progress in real time through the workspace feature.
And the crucial element here is the ability to view the agent's actual thought process.
Yes, its internal chain of reasoning. You can see the decision nodes it hit, the tools it called, and most importantly, why it decided to retry a task.
That is key. You aren't just trusting a black box result, you're auditing the logical integrity of the decision-making process.
Yeah.
That's how you build trust and know when to intervene if the logic is flawed.
Exactly. So, to summarize the tool showdown, the choice depends entirely on the domain of the job. Cowork is your local file system expert. It's for file manipulation, local code refactoring, asynchronous queuing, and it's managed via token budgets. Best use cases: clean up my local hard drive.
And Manus is your external specialist. It's for open web navigation, deep research, web automation, and it's optimized via multi-model intelligence. Best use case: research these 50 companies and synthesize their pricing data. The future is a hybrid firm, which means you're going to need both of these specialized archetypes.
No question about it.
For years, the popular and often terrifying prediction was that AI would kill middle management. The narrative was all about flattening the hierarchy, allowing senior leaders to direct execution directly.
Right.
The sources we have here are crystal clear. The prediction was fundamentally wrong.
The reality of 2026 is the exact inverse. The role isn't dead. It's been fundamentally reconstructed and, I would argue, promoted. Middle managers are no longer task monitors or simple information routers. They are now AI Orchestrator.
They're the linchpins.
They are the linchpins responsible for binding the hybrid workforce of carbon and silicon together, ensuring the output is coherent, safe, and strategically aligned.
But this shift is creating a huge problem upstream in the talent pipeline, what the document calls the missing middle.
It's a looming talent crisis. Agents are consuming the routine cognitive tasks, the data cleaning, the basic report drafting, the entry-level coding, the first pass at due diligence.
Historically, these were the apprenticeship roles. This is how junior employees developed fundamental pattern recognition and judgment before they moved up.
Right. And with agents now doing this work, how does a junior employee ever develop the senior judgment they'll need later in their career?
So the new managerial mandate isn't just administration, it's becoming a coach for the new era.
Managers have to proactively develop their human staff for what's being called algorithmic intuition, and they have to do it through simulation-based training.
Why simulation?
Because the cost of failure in a live system, especially one run by 50 autonomous agents, is just too high for on-the-job training. Management skills are shifting from task delegation to high-level strategic oversight and risk assessment.
And this gives rise to a new kind of supervisor.
Yes. McKinsey refers to this new dynamic as the need for M-shaped supervisors.
M-shaped, meaning broad generalists who are fluent in multiple domains, including AI orchestration.
And they're supported by the T-shaped experts who have the deep technical knowledge required to debug the complex edge cases where the agents ultimately fail.
So the M-shaped manager knows enough about legal and finance to ensure the agents don't violate cross-functional constraints.
Whereas the T-shaped expert knows how to fix the specific Python script that the coding agent broke.
Let's get tactical. If the middle manager is now an AI orchestrator, what does a day in their life actually look like? It can't be reviewing emails and scheduling meetings anymore.
The primary activity shifts entirely from reviewing human work products to engineering machine workflows and auditing agent logic. Let's walk through a typical day.
Okay, start the clock, 8 a.m. What are they doing?
8.000 dashboard triage. The day begins not with an inbox full of emails, but with the agent health dashboard, something like a Salesforce Agentforce or a custom corporate build.
And what are they looking for?
They're looking at mission-critical KPIs across their whole digital crew. They're checking the deflection rate for customer service agents. If it's falling, that means the agent is failing to resolve too many inquiries on its own.
Okay.
They're looking for sudden hallucination spikes in the research crew. If an agent starts pulling fabricated data, that is a critical failure. And they are critically monitoring token consumption against their departmental budget.
So they're managing a budget of compute, a cost center, instantly triaging the performance and costs of their entire digital workforce. What's the core competency that replaces the old HR functions?
9.30 SOP engineering. This is the manager's new core competency. It replaces the management of people with the management of instructions. They are constantly refining agent SOPs.
Standard operating procedures.
Exactly. And these are natural language instruction sets that serve as the source code for the agent's behavior.
This sounds simple, but I know the failure to manage a prompt can be devastating. Give us a clear example of a bad SOP and how a manager would fix it through engineering.
Okay. Let's say an agent is tasked with summarizing client feedback and posting it to an internal forum. The initial SOP is just summarize feedback and post. Simple.
But then something goes wrong.
Right. The manager notices a failure. The agent is accidentally including personally identifiable information, PII, like client email addresses in the internal post. Now, the agent is technically following the instruction, but it's creating a huge compliance risk.
So the manager performs SOP engineering.
Yes. They refine the instruction set with what's called a negative constraint. Summarize feedback and post, but never include client names, email addresses, or phone numbers. If PII is detected, redact it before posting.
So they're acting as software engineers, but using natural language prompts instead of Python code to govern the system's behavior.
That's a perfect way to put it.
And what happens when the agent runs into ambiguity?
11.00 exception handling, HITL. This is the manager's time for human-in-the-loop workflows. When an agent hits a low-confidence scenario, say, a supplier contract contains contradictory clauses the agent can't reconcile, it pauses and routes the decision to the manager.
The manager resolves the issue, makes the judgment call.
But the key action is that they tag that specific interaction to be added to the agent's few-shot training examples. This is continuous improvement. It permanently upgrades the agent's capability, ensuring that specific ambiguity never requires human intervention again.
Then governance takes over, which is essential for mitigating legal risk.
14.00 shadow AI policing. The manager has to act as a governance gatekeeper, auditing for shadow AI, unauthorized, often free or easily accessible, agents that team members deploy to bypass procurement and security controls.
And they have to make sure every single agent in use is registered in the enterprise agent registry.
Yes, and that it complies with data privacy standards. This is vital because the legal liability falls on the firm, not on the employee who deployed the rogue agent.
And finally, translating the big picture strategy into actionable digital directives.
16.00 strategic translation. The manager converts abstract senior leadership roles like, we must increase Q3 customer retention by 5% into the specific, structured, machine-readable directives required by the Agentic Mesh. For example, reconfigure the retention bot to prioritize sentiment analysis over speed in all interactions with high-value clients.
The manager is the crucial translator between human strategy and machine execution.
That's their core value.
Since we can't take an AI agent out for coffee to discuss its career goals, performance management must also shift entirely. We're moving from periodic, qualitative reviews to continuous quantitative technical audits. This is the new KPI framework that executives have to demand.
Absolutely. The performance review is now a technical audit. It's focused on utility, cost, alignment, and risk. The organization must define a whole new scorecard.
So first, let's talk about the primary measure of autonomy, task performance.
That's the success rate. TSR. It's the percentage of workflows completed end-to-end without human intervention or error. This measures the agent's independence. You want TSR as close to 100% as possible.
And tied to that is step efficiency.
Yes, this measures if the agent is thrashing, wasting compute, running unnecessary loops, browsing irrelevant data versus following the optimal shortest path. A low step efficiency means high token consumption and waste.
Next up, the essential risk metric, hallucination rate.
This is non-negotiable for regulated industries. It is the frequency with which the agent generates factually incorrect or fabricated information. If your research agent has a 5% hallucination rate, then 5% of your strategic output is based on lies.
And if that rate is too high?
Then the agent should only be deployed in a mandatory human review HITL loop, period.
Then the cost center of the agent's salary.
That's token consumption. Managers have to track the cost per successful task. This is what grounds the ROI analysis. If Agent A completes a task for 500 tokens and Agent B completes the identical task for 5,000 tokens, Agent B is highly inefficient. The manager needs to rewrite its agent SOP to reduce that thrashing.
And finally, the measure of dependency. You called it the Goldilocks metric.
That's the escalation rate. How often does the agent raise its hand for human help? A healthy agent escalates only when it's genuinely unsure based on that low confidence score.
But if the rate is too high, the agent is inefficient. It's just outsourcing its workload to the human manager.
Right. And if the rate is too low, the manager should be suspicious. That agent might be a high-risk confident failure, executing mistakes without seeking any review.
And to make this audit even more rigorous, we can't just trust the final output. We need advanced evaluation. Tell us about the LLM as a judge methodology.
This is really sophisticated governance. Instead of a human checking the final output, you use a highly capable teacher model. Think a premium model like GPT-4, or a fast, reliable one like Claude 3.5 Sonnet to grade the working agent's performance.
But the judge model doesn't just look at the final answer, right? It evaluates the agent's reasoning traces.
Exactly, and that's the key.
So why is auditing the reasoning trace more valuable than auditing the output?
Because the reasoning trace shows you how the agent arrived at its conclusion. It provides a semantic analysis of alignment. If the final output is technically correct, but the agent used a prohibited data source or ignored a negative constraint in its reasoning.
The judge model catches the process failure, not just the output error.
You've got it. This ensures not just correctness, but compliance with strategic intent and internal governance. The orchestrator is managing a workforce where performance and risk are governed continuously by other AI systems.
Okay, here's where the conversation gets truly critical and I think potentially financially devastating for the executive suite. The integration of autonomous reasoning agents introduces this immense undefined surface area for legal and financial risk.
It does.
We need to turn the lights on in the legal minefield because ignorance is no defense here.
This is the liability vacuum that executives must address immediately. When a human employee makes a mistake, a typo, a missed deadline, we have clear frameworks for that. But when an autonomous agent deletes a production database,
Or generates a libelous statement in a client report.
or, and this is critical, signs a disadvantageous contract or a purchase order autonomously, who bears the financial and legal consequence?
What is the current consensus that's emerging from the courts and regulatory bodies?
The consensus is firm. The deployer of the AI is strictly liable for its actions. Courts are aggressively rejecting the black box defense. You cannot simply say the vendor's probabilistic model did it.
The law views the autonomous agent as an extension of the corporation's will.
That's it. There is no legal distinction between the algorithm did it and the company did it.
Let's talk about the transactional liability. If an agent is granted the authority to execute and it signs a purchase order for $5 million without human review, and that order turns out to be disastrously mispriced, the firm is still on the hook for that.
Absolutely. The work graph has to define not only who the agent is, but what its explicit transactional authority is. This is why those HITL approval gates are so essential. If you allow an agent to commit the company to a contract, you are accepting the strict liability for that commitment.
And we have to talk about the Mobley v. Workday precedent because this is the crucial warning sign for executives everywhere, especially when it comes to HR and hiring.
This precedent signaled that primary liability often remains with the employer who relies on the tool, even if the vendor supplied the system. You cannot use AI as a liability shield for discriminatory outcomes.
So if your automated resume screening agent, powered by the best vendor on the market, produces a discriminatory outcome in hiring, say, rejecting candidates based on prohibited criteria, the employer is liable for that discrimination.
Correct. And this demands rigorous governance and continuous auditing of the agent's reasoning traces, which goes right back to that LLM as a judge mechanism we were talking about.
We also have statutory liability emerging, which is setting the bar for transparency.
Yes, like the Utah AI Policy Act. That act codifies liability for deceptive practices by AI. If your agent interacts with a consumer, say a customer service bot, and fails to disclose its non-human nature, or if it provides misleading financial or legal information.
The deploying company is liable as if a human employee had made that deceptive statement.
Yes, the legal burden of transparency is placed squarely on the deploying firm.
Given all this legal exposure, the vendor contract negotiation has become an absolute battlefield, specifically around the indemnification clause.
It is the new central negotiation point. AI providers are trying desperately to push liability for autonomous actions, hallucinations, and probabilistic errors back to the user.
Their argument is they can't control the specific prompts or the unpredictable nature of the generative model, so the customer owns the output risk.
Right. But the sophisticated enterprise customers are demanding comprehensive indemnification that goes far beyond traditional IP protection.
They're demanding protection specifically for failures of the model to adhere to safety guardrails, autonomous errors resulting in financial loss, and claims arising from misuse of proprietary data.
Yes, and the emerging best practice seems to be shared responsibility. Vendors indemnify for core model failures, while users indemnify for outcomes resulting from their own proprietary data, poor prompting, or failure to implement proper HITL controls. You have to know what risk you are absorbing in that contract.
Now, let's look at the insurance market itself. This is perhaps the biggest hidden crisis facing C-suite executives who think their current policies already protect them. This is the silent AI crisis.
Traditional policies, your commercial general liability, your D&O, your errors and omissions, they were all written in a world without autonomous agents. They don't explicitly mention AI.
Which creates silent AI coverage.
Exactly. The unintentional possibility that the insurer might be liable for a massive, unpriced, AI-driven loss. The insurance industry views this as an existential threat, and they are moving aggressively to eliminate it.
And that elimination is coming in the form of some brutal fine print. We need to issue a clear warning here. You must audit your policies immediately for absolute AI exclusions.
This is an urgent call to action. Carriers like Berkeley and Hamilton are already introducing absolute AI exclusions in their D&O and E&O policies. These are sweeping endorsements.
What do they say?
They broadly exclude coverage for any claim based upon, arising out of, or attributable to the use of artificial intelligence. If your company relies on these standard policies and you deploy autonomous agents, you are dangerously exposed. You are uninsured for their mistakes, from libel to catastrophic financial loss.
And the clock is ticking on that silent coverage. Even the industry standardization body, the Insurance Services Office, or ISO, is stepping in to close the loophole.
The ISO is rolling out specific endorsements, like updates to CG 2026, to standardize how generative AI exposures are handled across the market. This means the ambiguity is being intentionally removed.
So if you do not buy affirmative coverage, you will be explicitly excluded.
Yeah.
Your E&O policy will not cover the actions of your agentic workforce.
That's the bottom line.
So what does the market offer to fill that terrifying gap? We are seeing the rise of affirmative AI insurance.
This is the new specialized market you need to be engaging with. Munich Re's Azure, for example, specifically covers the performance gap.
The performance gap.
Yes. If your new fraud detection AI promises 99.5% accuracy but only delivers 90%, leading to massive undetected losses, the policy pays out for that operational loss. It covers both internal own damages and third-party liabilities from underperformance.
And then there's the concept of treating the model itself like a warranted product.
That's Armilla's AI liability, which is backed by Lloyd's. It creates a warranty for the model's performance. If the model hallucinates or fails to meet its established performance metrics, leading to a lawsuit or a loss, the policy covers the defense costs and damages.
We're also seeing major cloud providers like Google Cloud offering IP indemnity.
They are for users against copyright lawsuits resulting from the use of their generative AI tools. They're carving out specific, narrow liability concessions to stay competitive.
The ultimate solution, however, remains governance. Gartner predicts that 40% of agentic AI projects will fail purely due to inadequate risk controls. How do we engineer guardrails to mitigate the risk we just described?
By using rigorous human-in-the-loop HITL architectures. HITL is the primary mechanism for mitigating autonomy risk. It ensures human judgment is inserted at critical decision gates before an error becomes catastrophic.
So give us the common architectures that executives should be mandating in their workflows.
First, approval gates. This is proactive control. The agent drafts the action, say, I have optimized the supply chain order and drafted the $500,000 purchase order.
But the execution is paused.
Execution is paused, and a permission token is sent to the manager's dashboard. The workflow cannot proceed until the manager clicks approve.
Second, the more dynamic approach, confidence-based routing.
This is reactive safety. The agent calculates an internal confidence score for its plan. I am 75% sure this invoice matches the PO based on the ambiguity of the supplier name. If that score falls below a predefined threshold, let's say 90%, the agent automatically yields control and routes the task to a human for manual review.
This prevents those low-confidence, high-stakes errors from ever happening.
Exactly. And finally, for lower-risk tasks, the necessary evil of accountability and forensics.
Post-hoc audit logging.
Right. The agent works autonomously to maintain speed, but every single step it takes, inputs, tool calls, reasoning traces, outputs, is logged to an immutable ledger for retrospective auditing and forensic analysis if something goes wrong. If you can't prove how the agent made the mistake, you can't fix it, and you certainly can't defend the liability claim.
So let's bring this all together. We started with the harsh but necessary truth. The org chart is dead. It's being supplanted by the fluid dynamic work graph, which explicitly maps agents as digital coworkers.
The economic imperative is clear. You achieve that 20x to 50x leverage by instantiating agent crews, not by hiring more humans. And this requires executives to shift their budget focus from headcount to compute, from salaries to token consumption.
We detail the crucial difference between the specialized tools, the local intelligence of cowork for file manipulation and asynchronous queuing, versus the web autonomy of Manamoose for external research and autonomous browsing.
And we affirmed that the middle manager has been promoted to AI Orchestrator. Their new core competencies are dashboard triage, SOP engineering for governance, and acting as the human-in-the-loop exception handler.
And they're governing their crews using technical KPIs like success rate, TSR, and auditing reasoning traces via LLM as a judge.
Most importantly, we shone a spotlight on the risk and insurance nightmare. The key takeaways are the deployer is strictly liable, the Mobley v. Workday precedent holds employers accountable, and the clock is ticking on silent AI as carriers aggressively introduce absolute AI exclusions.
Your solution lies in purchasing affirmative AI insurance and engineering those rigorous HITL architectures.
The transition to the agentic organization can be structured into a three-stage maturity model. Stage 1 is the foundation, using the freelancer model for individual productivity and enforcing basic shadow AI auditing to catch rogue agents.
Stage 2 is the mesh. That's deploying the orchestrator worker model, implementing rigorous HITL workflows, especially confidence-based routing, and proactively securing the company by purchasing specialized affirmative AI insurance that warrants performance.
And stage 3 is the agentic firm. This is where the full work graph operates seamlessly, automated evaluator optimizer loops run continuous governance, and the organizational culture has shifted entirely to system enablement.
The sources conclude that the winners of 2026 will not be the companies that simply buy the fastest agents, but those that master the art of orchestration, building the governance, the legal firewalls, and the human capability to conduct a symphony of silicon and carbon.
The AI Orchestrator holds the baton, coordinating the chaos of autonomy into the harmony of productivity. So here is the final provocative thought we want to leave you with. Do your middle managers truly understand their new strategic role?
Are they spending their cognitive load engineering agent SOPs to increase efficiency, or are they still just stuck in the old paradigm of answering emails?
Their transition is either your biggest strategic liability or it's your greatest source of competitive leverage.
Start your audit today. Pull out your D&O and E&O policies and immediately look for those absolute AI exclusions. Your compliance and your financial health depend on knowing exactly what is and isn't covered by your current insurance framework. That's all for this deep dive.
That wraps up our deep dive into the agentic workforce. The signal for today is orchestration. The winners of 2026 won't be the companies with the best AI models. They will be the companies with the best managers, the AI orchestrators, who can bind carbon and silicon into a cohesive, compliant, and high-performing mesh. The middle manager isn't dead. They just got a massive promotion. Before we go, a reminder for the leaders listening. Are you drowning in dense legal text? Jamga Mind is the new audio intelligence platform that decodes liability so you don't have to. Start your specialized audio briefing today at jamgamind.com. This podcast is created and produced by Etienne Newman. Please subscribe and share. Until next time, keep unraveling the future.